why we're here? It's one of life's great mysteries, isn't it? Why are we here? I mean, are we the product of some cosmic coincidence, or is there really a God watching everything? With a plan for us and stuff. I don't know, man, but it keeps me up at night. What?
Hey guys, I'm Daisy, and today I'm going to be talking about Red vs. Blue. It's one of the longest running shows on the internet, and it's a web series that's based around Halo all the way up to Halo Infinite. And since I know the target audience of this video, I'm going to assume that you haven't watched RVB, and it was created by Rooster Teeth way back in 2003 by a group of guys just playing in the room. This show is super old, and honestly, it's old as I am. And over the years, the series has grown from its comedy sitcom format into a comedy sitcom, but with a lot more deep and interesting storylines. So, my video today isn't going to focus on, the main series, Red vs. Blue. It's actually going to focus on the spin off series, Red vs. Blue Zero, which has garnered a lot of negative attention by fans over the past couple of years since it's really diverged from what the show is really about, and hopefully I can uh, try to expand on those ideas and maybe put in my own few thoughts on why I really didn't like how Red versus Blue Zero treated the um, Red versus Blue universe, I guess, in a way. And we don't really have to introduce any of the other characters from the past seasons since Red versus Blue Zero kind of, brings everything into a whole new direction. It doesn't even mention any of the past characters except 3, and, I'm gonna try to quickly, go over those characters, talk about them, and why their character development in the past was really hindered by Red versus Blue Zero now. So those 3 characters that, were reintroduced this season were Carolina, Wash, and Tucker. In the main series, Washington finally showed up in Recovery One, which was a mini series, and he then went on to become one of the main characters. And basically, his whole thing is he was a rough, stoic little agent guy. Man, that was horrible. But as I was saying before, he used to be a cold, distant, bitter, cynical agent. But now, I mean, after being with the Reds and Blues, who I'm not really going to talk about other than Tucker, he's softened up. He's a lot more friendly and, more lenient about other things. He still has a really big leadership role though, and in the last season before Red vs. Blue Zero, he did sustain a head injury, or I guess neck injury, that gave him brain damage. And, Wash, his whole, I guess, theme around his character is I feel like he's a really big survivor. He's gone through a bunch of traumatic situations and, he's come out of them stronger. But I feel after last season, his neck injury, and then this season, it completely becoming, retconned, really hurt his character. And I really want to go into depth about that. So the next character I'm going to talk about is Carolina, who is kind of similar to Wash. They're from the same agency, Project Freelancer, but she is a very confident, cocky, and serious woman. But as the seasons has gone on, her inferiority complex has decreased, and she's really progressed as a character. She has more confidence in herself, and she is more willing to express her emotions after being with the Reds and Blues. And she has a really strong attachment to them, and kind of has like a big sis role within the Reds and Blues group. And I also want to talk about, the relationship between Carolina and Wash. I feel like Wash and Carolina, they have a brother sister type relationship. I mean, Carolina is always looking out for Wash, and she did look after him after he sustained his neck injury back in season 17. I don't know. But the both of them together do make an unbreakable pair, and I feel like that's really important in the main series, but in this Red vs. Blue Zero's mini series or spin-off series, sorry, it kind of gets thrown out of the window. And the last character that I'm going to be talking about that's from the main Red vs. Blue series is Tucker. his like main personality back in the earlier seasons was that he was sarcastic, he was pretty rude, he had some, sexual humor most of the time, and kind of acted like, a horny teenager. But over the years, Tucker has grown from being that, childish soldier into a much more respectable and mature leader, as he's shown to, care about the people on his team and doing anything that it takes to get that mission accomplished. And with Tucker back in, the early Blood Gulch Chronicles, which is part of the main Red versus Blue series, he did find a great weapon, which was a like sword, and that sword is actually used as a key, and it's used to unlock alien temples. And with the key, it only responds to the holder that owns it, and it's only able to be activated by them until they die. And Tucker Sword is going to be one of the things I talk about during this video, and about how he loses it and how that affects the story going forward. And so with everything out of the way, I want to start talking about Red versus Blue Zero. Let's go. So Red versus Blue Zero starts off with a truck delivering some ancient artifact to a large military facility known as Falcon Base. And there's two guards, talking about Agent Washington and talking about the facility, the artifact, saying, hey, this is pretty dangerous. I don't want to get into this trouble. But they also talk about Agent Washington and his neck and brain injury that was, supposedly healed and completely recovered from it due to cutting edge robotics and old kitchen appliances, which, in my opinion, sounds really stupid considering how much this season was supposed to be, actually serious. They put a lot of effort into it, and I know that it has a huge budget considering how beautiful the animation looks. And just saying that the past season didn't matter, that the red versus blue caused paradoxes for no reason, and Wash would have just gotten his, neck injury fixed anyway, is, in my opinion, really disrespectful to his character, as by the end of the last season, he was able to come to terms with having that brain injury, and he was like fully willing to, heal with the Reds and Blues plus Carolina after that whole incident. So then after that, that whole like building blows up, and this guy named Diesel comes in and he's like, blah, 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 I'm gonna kill everyone. Since, he's looking for whatever artifact they just delivered to that base. So, Wash comes in, he's like, we need backup, we gotta fight this guy. But Diesel is like super OP for some reason, and, gets hit with a rocket launcher like directly on him, but he emerges unscathed, and it really shocks Wash and all of the other soldiers that are helping him. And then we're introduced to another character. She's really pink. She's zooming in and out using a knife to teleport, and we learn that this character's name is FaZe. She's using her knife, to stun all of the guards, and, she's kind of stopped by Carolina, who's holding a gun to her head, but then she, teleports away. Carolina's fighting FaZe, and Wash is fighting Diesel. But, both of them, they can't really keep up with the enemies since, they're overpowered. They have the teleportation skills. And, by the end of the fight, they all end up into the room where the alien artifact is held. And Carolina and Wash lose the fight. Um, After they're being beat up by Diesel, Zero, and FaZe. And now the whole facility is in flames. Viper, which is the name of that enemy trio, are stealing the artifact, and they're taking Agent Washington without like any reason, I guess. And then they just knock out Carolina before they leave. Then we cut to, them torturing Wash for information about, the temples that are holding the key to the ultimate power, but he refuses to talk. And I actually like this scene because, I feel like this really does show Wash as a character. He's always fighting back. He doesn't take shit from anyone. And it also makes me really, really sad because I feel Wash is the most tortured character in this series. I mean, he had AI go crazy inside his brain. He had to work for one of his biggest enemies. He had to go through a whole civil war. It sucks that he got tortured for info, but I feel like that's Wash. That's basically what happens to him all the time. And that wraps up that episode. And I mean, my opinions on it, I think it's a pretty good opening, other than Wash's whole injury being scrapped. And I really think the animation in this episode is amazing. The lighting, everything, the effects is like spectacular. But I kind of feel like maybe this shouldn't have been labeled as Red versus Blue and maybe just, been put out as its own series since Red versus Blue is mainly known for its comedy and humor, all that type of stuff. And with this huge, like, grim opening that's action packed and full of, fights, it doesn't really seem like Red versus Blue other than, Wash and Carolina being there. And the music in this episode is kind of funny too, because there's like a rap song, which isn't like Red versus Blue in my opinion, because in the Red versus Blue series, they usually have rock music or, acoustic guitar, stuff like that, and rap doesn't really fit. Or I guess this type of rap doesn't fit because there was rap back in season 10. I can play a little bit for you right now.
You're coming with us, CT. This is your last chance. No, I'm not going anywhere with you.
Actually, we don't need you. We just need your armor.
I ain't drinking the narrative. People say it's suicidal with air. Crucify me as heretic, paranoid you embarrassment. Wrote it under mirrors, pockets hidden in garrison.
And I'm going to show a clip of RBB's zero use of rap music and how it's kind of different in tone and, the situation. So here is that clip.
If he's not going to tell us, this will.
Who even are you?
I'm not the one to be played with. You better suck when I'm going off. Something get chest when you guzzle for breath to get deaf, to get business start running off.
But I felt like that music was more suited for the season instead of this music being suited for this season. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm just nostalgic for the past seasons, but the music, it's all right. Now, moving on to the next episode, we are introduced to Shatter Squad. I mean, we were kind of introduced to them in the previous episode, but it wasn't as important in my opinion, and they do go more in depth into, each character in this episode, so I feel like it's better to put it with this one, I guess. And Shatter Squad rescues Carolina from Falcon Base and tells them about, hey, we just got robbed and Wash got kidnapped, so we gotta do something. And as Carolina is, helping Shatter Squad train up and get ready for a fight with Viper, she does go and talk about each member of the squad to see what, she's working with. So we're introduced to Axel, who's a weapons expert, pretty father-like, the actual leader of the squad. Then we meet West, who is the actual father on the squad, who has a kid, and their name is East, who is pretty rebellious. She's pretty competitive too, like Carolina was in the past. And Carolina assumes that East has daddy issues, which I think is pretty funny. And then we meet One, who is also really impulsive, and she has a lot of potential to become the next leader of Shatter Squad. And then the last person she introduced is Raymond, who is the newest member, and he's pretty good with technology and stuff, but he's also like super desperate to fit in with everyone else. And this scene kind of pissed me off. Not that it wasn't bad, it's just I feel if they were going to introduce the characters this way, it should have been done in, a trailer or something similar, a PSA or something. Because I feel like if we really wanted to be introduced to these characters, a better way to do that is, actually show them doing the things you're describing them doing. We didn't need all of, their character traits laid out for us on a table and read to us like it's a Bible. It's just, it's not the introduction I wanted to these new characters. And it feels kind of lazy since they're just gonna get on with the plot and we're just like, hey, this is the characters, this is how they act, okay, back to the next scene. So after that whole, mess of an introduction, we cut to seeing Zero and FaZe approach this huge temple, and they use the alien artifact that they stole to, gain entry, and they're meted by a bunch of aliens. And there's a huge fight between them, and it's honestly really cool. I love the way that this fight is, put into it. It's a lot more better than the fights that we were seeing last season, as they were kind of bland. So hold on, I can add a clip from one of the fights in the previous seasons compared to this season, and you can see how much, more effort was put into this season with the fights other than the story. So during this whole fight, it's like cut between back and forth of Zero and FaZe and then one and East training. And during that, whole fighting scene, we get a monologue by Axel saying how East was taken to this laboratory and was experimented on, to save her life. And that's why she has that cool ability of, having that burst step. It's like a super speed type of thing. And then also talking about one and how her parents were like super elite members of the AOD before they were killed. And so, Axel took her in as one as her own. And after that, Caroline is just like, we need to get Wash back. We need Shatter Squad to go after them and fight. And after some teasing by One and East, saying that she's a grandma, she can't really keep up with the rest of them, Carolina, challenges One and East to a hand-to-hand combat. And the both of them, they're like instantly subdued. They're knocked clean out. Carolina is OP. And that's pretty much where the episode ends. So this episode, I feel like, was okay, as the same as the last episode. I really didn't like the character introductions that we got, and I feel like last episode's introduction of Diesel and FaZe were a lot better. They, told us about their personalities more than, Carolina just reading Shatter Squad's personality off of a script. And again, the fight scenes, the animation is incredible. Kind of wish that they, put this much effort into the previous seasons, but it's whatever. So I'm kind of just gonna, glance over the next couple of episodes because it's just them training up and investigating what's going on with Team Viper. I think the most important thing that happens within these next two episodes is, them finding Washington again and Team Viper recovering another key. And we also figure out that Axel and Zero used to work together and they were friends or something, but something happened. They were pissed off, they had a fight, and we see the flashback of them, chasing each other, having that fight. And in these episodes, they also had a pretty huge fight between, Viper and Shatter Squad. But, they ultimately get beaten by Team Viper, and they're really struggling to catch up with them. And they all pretty much get blown away by Team Viper since they really can't come together and work as a team. And I actually like these episodes because it really shows each character more in depth. It shows that they're not really used to working with each other, and if they're gonna, succeed at this, they have to work as a team. And I feel like Carolina being there telling them, hey, we have to work together. We're not gonna get through this by ourselves. It really enforces, the theme, I mean, from what I'm getting, of teamwork and, trust with each other. And they all talk about, hey, why is Team Viper going after all these keys? Carolina's like, what? You just say key? I have a friend who has a key and it's actually a sword. And they're like, oh snap, we have to protect Tucker. And that's why I introduced him earlier. And now we're moving on to the next episode, and I think honestly it's the worst episode in this whole season. And it starts off, we see Tucker, he's in front of some military base trying to impress some soldiers until, Carolina and Shadow Squad, they come up and they're like, hey, yo, Tucker, you gotta get out of here. You're gonna die if you don't leave. And Tucker, he's like, what are y'all talking about? What is going on? But then, there's a huge explosion. They start fighting, and Caroline is ordering everyone to, get Tucker out of there, fight against Team Viper, and try to, get him out of there safely. And I feel like Tucker could have been a lot more vocal. I know that he wasn't really involved with this season, his voice actor, but it would have been a lot cooler, to see him interact with these new characters and maybe, talk about his sword while everybody's, battling and, get a more in depth explanation on how Tucker feels about the whole situation. Because throughout this episode, he doesn't even talk a lot. He's just, running around in the background, following everyone, trying to get out of the way. And then Tucker goes off with East because, she's escorting him. And they manage to reach a pelican and they're like, okay, we're good, we're gonna escape. Other than the fact, East is kind of hurt, but let's go. But East is kind of freaking out. Her like burst movement type of speed thing. She's kind of flickering uncontrollably while Tucker's, trying to get her on the aircraft. And, as soon as Tucker tries to, help her out, East just straight up stabs him. And Tucker's just stabbed in the stomach, knocked down, and tosses him up to the side. And, East has Tucker's sword now, which, as I explained earlier, once the main holder dies, whoever picks up the sword next is going to become, the bearer of the sword, and no one else is going to be able to activate it. And it's revealed that East was actually like a clone of FaZe, and East was kind of like a mini spy, to try and get close to Shatter Squad and to get Tucker's sword. And everybody finds this out and they're like, oh, fuck, we are screwed. And Carolina hears what happened to Tucker and how Tucker died after his, quote unquote fight with East. And this whole episode pisses me off for a bunch of reasons. They brought back one of the most favorite characters in the series to just kill him off as soon as he shows up. And I'm not gonna lie, when I was watching this for the first time with my friend Joe, we were like, oh my gosh, it's Tucker. Wow, I wonder what he's gonna do this season. And then just seeing him die very suddenly like that was, you know, we were disgusted. We were horrified. And we both, we were just like, we're not watching this anymore. We're done. And that's where Joe, stopped watching the season. I mean, I had to keep going because I gotta write this video. And even though with all of the huge junk that just happened with Tucker, I thought it was really cool that FaZe and East were actually, the same person. I mean, it was already pretty much implied throughout the previous episodes since they have pretty similar voices and they have pretty similar skills. I just kind of wish they went more in depth with FaZe as a character and, maybe explain how she is controlling East. I mean, I know they're clones, but I feel like that'd be pretty hard having two bodies to have to control and, fighting with both at the same time, pretending, you're on different teams. But we kind of do get more info in the next episode where we get Wes talking about what happened to East when she was, younger and why they had to do that huge like testing thing on her as a kid. And Wes is like, oh, we had to do it or else she would have died. And it's like a flashback scene, and we can hear Axel and Zero both telling West, hey, you shouldn't really do this. Don't do that. Meanwhile, East is like scared out of her mind, and the doctors just keep operating on her. And in the next scene, we figure out, hey, Tucker's alive. LOL, he didn't die. And Tucker is with Wash and Carolina, and they're like, oh my gosh, we're so glad you're okay, blah, blah, blah. You could have died, but you got recovered because our technology is so good now. And, Tucker's obviously upset over losing his sword, saying that he's half a man now. And I really like that scene because I felt like it was the most in character part of this season for him. And it feels a lot like the old Red versus Blue, but it still pisses me off since, they keep saying that the new technology is just, healing characters magically, as they did with Wash and now with Tucker. And so the rest of this episode is, just Shatter Squad coming together, with the power of teamwork and getting ready to have a final stand against Team Viper. And so Team Viper, they're already at the final temple with, Tucker's key and the key that Zero had. And they're using them to, open up that temple and get into it so they can get the last key. But right as they enter, Zero's like, gotta make a quick phone call, gotta let them know that I'm here. And he's basically like, yeah, I'm at the final, temple. If you wanna come get me, you can. If you don't, you don't. It's up to you. And so everyone on Chatter Squad is gonna be like, oh my god, we gotta go fight. And, Zero can't do anything to us anymore. We gotta go. And even though they were like beat up by Team Viper in the past, they're really determined to save East, which I think is pretty cool. I like that, they still think East is their own separate person apart from FaZe, and how, they're trying to redeem her. And I always like characters being redeemed. I'm a sucker for that. But I feel now that they're more together as a team, going back and being able to talk with FaZe/East is going to be a lot more easy. And in the next episode, we do just see them burst into action and they, just go into it. They go into the temple, they beat up all of the monsters, and they encounter Diesel, that big, huge dude. He's holding his own great weapon, and Carolina kind of does a one-on-one battle with him, while the rest of Shatter Squad, goes to find Zero and FaZe. And this battle, in my opinion, it's super cool. I love Carolina. I love women. And I just think that this huge battle is just so beautifully animated. And I like the way that Carolina taunts Diesel before the fight.
Why are you here, freelancer? After I squash you like a bug, I'm going to rip your friends apart with my bare hands.
It speaks. I thought you only grunted.
It really reminds me of her back in, season 10 and the fights that we saw with her in the Shizno trilogy.
Hand over the flag, and I promise I'll try not to do any permanent damage.
Shut up and fight.
Nice voice box, Optimus. You get that in a Cracker Jack box?
But moving past that, we cut back to Shatter Squad, going into the next part of the temple where FaZe is fighting them. And one is like, hey, bro, I'm sorry that I didn't, take you seriously. I'm sorry for being a bitch towards you. And they have this huge one-on-one fight between each other before West blocks it. Everybody's like, okay, we got to take down FaZe. But West is like, no, go after Zero. And, he just wants to talk to FaZe one-on-one. Since, everyone else doesn't have any time to do anything about it, they have to just go after Zero and leave West with FaZe. And so West is like, hey, FaZe, I'm so sorry I did that. And even calls her by her real name. But FaZe is like, dude, no, I'm not going to accept that apology. And has this sick fight with her clone against her dad. So getting back to Shatter Squad, they all go after Zero. They're having a huge fight. Carolina and Diesel, they're having their fight. And Zero's, approaching the last ultimate power, which is a helmet. And Shatter Squad's, trying to reason with him, saying, hey, don't do that. But, Zero takes the helmet anyways, becomes one with this huge Black Lotus character, and he gains the ultimate power. And in this episode, I really did like the fight between FaZe and West, as it shows, how much pain that FaZe was going through after being tortured and experimented on by her father. And I think it, portrays it in a realistic way. Not everyone's gonna, just accept an apology and be like, yep, okay, you're fine with it. And I don't know. I just really liked that episode. So last episode, trying to wrap this up really quickly before I get to 30 minutes. So, Zero has the ultimate power. One, Axel and Raymond are going to have to, battle against him. But they don't really have any other choice but to fight. And then we cut back to Carolina, who's still fighting against Diesel. And, she ends up defeating him and taking his great weapon, and then joins the others. So Shatter Squad is all trying to fight Zero, but they can't really, beat him since Zero does have the ultimate power and he's able to block all of their attacks. But, Zero's kind of getting ahead of himself and he isn't able to, fully defeat Shatter Squad. And the Black Lotus, which was inside that helmet, is like, haha, you're a loser, you're pathetic, you can't even defeat this tiny squad. And this pisses off Zero a bunch and is trying to go crazy on Shatter Squad. And he's trying to kill Carolina, but Axel's like, you would have never killed a defenseless opponent. And so Black Lotus just interrupts Zero and he's like, you're not worthy to wield the ultimate power. But then, we cut back to FaZe and East and their fight against West. West throws a grenade at East and makes the clone of her rejoin back with FaZe. And West is like, hey, I'm ready for you to just kill me. I am so sorry and I will always love you. And so she just knocks him out and yells. And after that, FaZe goes back to Shatter Squad and they're all able to, outmaneuver Zero and destroy him basically. And even though Zero survives that huge attack, he is defeated and the Black Lotus is like, good job, Shatter Squad, and just disappears with him. And at the end of that, one just takes Zero's sword for herself. And everybody's just like, yep, that was great. I want you to call us by our real name. FaZe is like, oh, you can call me Danielle. Axel is like, my name's Jamie. One is like, my name's Lance. And Raymond's just like, what? Y'all were using code names, bro? And that's pretty much how it ends. They all reunite. They're like, oh, goody goody two shoes with another. And they just become Shatter Squad again. And as an ending, I feel like it could have been a lot better. I would have liked it to see, FaZe go off on her own and choose her own path other than going back to Shatter Squad. And I don't really know why Shatter Squad took her back after everything she did to them, you know, fighting against them, killing, their soldiers and killing Tucker, if I'm being honest. It Even though I do like redemption, this just felt way too rushed. And, after the whole fight between everyone, they're like, yep, we're all friends now. Feels like a cop out of an ending, trying to have a good ending when it's okay to have a bad one. I don't mean bad as in terms of writing. I mean bad in like, oh, the hero didn't get the ending that they wanted. And I feel like if RVB Zero was willing to take more risks with, their new series and maybe have it play out with the villains winning, I kind of would have wanted to see that. And I think it would have been an interesting turn in the RVB franchise. But, I can't really take back what happened, and I'm pretty sure Rooster Teeth announced a while back that they're just going to stop making Red versus Blue Zero and they're just going to go back to the old content, which I'm okay with, but, kind of pissed off at the same time. Like, why did y'all do this if you know everybody wasn't going to like the direction you guys were going to take in the first place? And I feel like all of the negativity surrounding the season is well deserved. And they reintroduce those original characters as side characters, and they barely interact with the new season, the new characters. And they only serve to help move the plot. The way they handled the lore set up in previous seasons, just essentially scrap that is kind of a poor decision to make for this season as well. And I love this season's fight scenes and the huge camera action that was going on, because I'm being honest, it is a beautiful season. The animation is great, it's lovely. But if they just wanted to showcase their animation without really putting a lot of thought into, the story, maybe Rooster Teeth could have, made a whole different series, to test out their animation skills instead of using Red versus Blue, to be their test dummy. And just, I don't know. I don't know. Pisses me off, but whatever. I'm gonna end the video here and just want to say thanks. And bye bye.